Let's return to This Week in America. Here's your host, Rick Bratton.
Welcome back, everybody, coast to coast, This Week in America. The Mysterious Affair at the Met is the latest literary masterpiece from acclaimed author M.J. Simms-Maddox, the latest in the Priscilla series, a unique novel series chronicling the coming of age and adventures of a modern-day, feisty, fiercely independent Black American young woman. A favorite destination even for New Yorkers is the venerable Metropolitan Museum of Art. On this particular day, the Met, as generally known, experiences an unusually large number of visitors. Visitors have their choice of viewing over 2 million works of art spanning 5 millennia of cultures worldwide. But some among them are up to something more sinister, and thus began what later became known as the Mysterious Affair at the Met. The Met hires Priscilla's PR firm to avert an impending scandal regarding the provenance of 3 masterpieces on display. Indie author M.J. Simms-Maddox is a South Carolina native who grew up in the snow belt of western New York. Her academic credentials include a Doctor of Philosophy degree in political science from The Ohio State University. She has served as a legislative aide in the Ohio Senate, operated a PR firm, and taught political science for many years. Art, mystery, suspense, international crime, plot twist that will have you on the edge of your seat. The Mysterious Affair at the Met. And author Dr. M.J. Simms-Maddox is our guest on This Week in America. Doctor, welcome to the program. A pleasure to have you with us.
It's very good to be here.
I am so excited about talking about the Mysterious Affair at the Met, and stop me if I give away too much of it here. It's such a fascinating story, and I'm looking forward to talking about that. Well, let's start with the inspiration for this book and how you got started in writing novels. How did this all begin for you?
Well, it all began when I had a series of recurring dreams about a conversation that I had with my father the year before he died from colon cancer. And it wasn't a bad dream, it was a good dream in which he was expressing his hopes and dreams for me and that I would have a good life. But he ended the conversation by telling me that he and my mother thought I was not living my life to please myself, and that they would really appreciate if I would start living my life to please myself. Up to that point, I had been taught to, do as you're told and always try to please your parents. And Rick, I was 28 years of age, and I still had not come into my own. And that's what they were concerned about. So I shared that dream with a girlfriend, and she said, MJ, the next time you have that dream, write it down. And I'm old school, so I took out a legal pad and I started writing that dream. And one page turned to another, one legal pad turned to another legal pad until I had a stack. And not having creative writing in my background because my academic credentials are in the social sciences. I'm a political scientist. I didn't study in the humanities and English where you learn about creative writing. So I sent that voluminous manuscript to a publisher in Berkeley, California. I didn't know I had to have a literary agent, but he was kind enough to respond. Now, it was a rejection letter, but it was a well-crafted and well-directed to me. First, he said that I write well, but I need an editor. Then he said a lot of other things, but he ended with 3 books in 1. And that's how I got started.
That's a fascinating story. And you've taken some of that wisdom in another book you've written, a handbook for emerging and seasoned authors that we'll talk about at the end. And you really lay this out for everybody, all of the steps. And so often you think I write the book and send it off to somebody and I pick it up at the library in a couple of weeks. It doesn't, or a bookstore. It doesn't work that way, does it?
No, it does not. It does not.
Well, you've done so much to help other people as well. And I mentioned this was part of the Priscilla series. Well, actually, let me ask it this way. Is this part of the series or is this a standalone book? If I've not read the others, can I read this, The Mysterious Affair at the Met?
to some extent, you can read each of the 5 novels that I've published as a standalone. However, in each novel builds on the previous one. So by the time, if you pick up The Mysterious Affair at the Met as your first book in the series, there are going to be so many references to what happened previously in Priscilla's life that you'll be frustrated. You say, oh gosh, I got to go back and read the other 4 just to know how we got to this point. So it just depends. But again, it would be best to go back to the beginning.
And I would recommend that because they're great stories that unfold in the Priscilla series by our guest on the program, MJ Simms-Maddox. Her website is very simple, novelsbymj.com. If you go to our website, we'll lead you to her website. Books, of course, available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all of the usual places. I would like to ask about the Priscilla character. Where did this come from? I see a lot of similarities between her background and you, the background with the politics, and politics enters into many of the stories that you tell. Is this based on maybe loosely on you or maybe completely on you?
Rick, the first novel is autobiographical fiction.
Okay.
all those legal pads that I told you about,
oh, yes.
I had written my life story and had not realized it. So I had to go in and change the names of a lot of the people and the places. For example, I grew up in Jamestown, New York, as you mentioned earlier, in the snow belt. Instead of calling it Jamestown, in the novels, it's called Prendergast. And Prendergast was the name of one of the founders of Jamestown. Priscilla's character was, in the first book, is entirely based on my personality, my background, as you say, and many other things. When she starts out, she's self-centered, she's sheltered, and she's a spoiled brat, if you will. She's her father's favorite. And as the series develops, she develops as well. Okay, so by the time you get to The Mysterious Affair at the Met, Priscilla's no longer self-centered and spoiled. You know, she's grown out of that. Yes. And she's more aware of her surroundings. She's a more conscientious person, but more importantly, she has a world view. In the beginning, she had a very myopic, a very, pedestrian, very small view of the world. But by the 5th novel, hers is a multicultural world, and her worldview is much more expanded than when she first set out.
It's interesting as you watch her transformation, her growth, which all of us go through. So it's happening in real life with Priscilla. She has the PR firm. She's brought in by the Met to try to resolve all of this, which has immense consequences. You had a PR firm as well. So again, it's somewhat autobiographical in that sense. Yeah. I want to ask you about your writing regimen. You mentioned legal pads, and if I didn't have a legal pad, I couldn't write a thought down. Are you still using legal pads?
Yes. Okay, look, I began 20-something years ago, old school. Rick, I am still very old school. I actually have a pen in my hand as we're talking right now. I use legal pads all day and night, whenever I travel, hotel rooms, on the train when I take Amtrak. I have a legal pad attached to a clipboard. Did you hear what I said?
Yes, I have one of those too.
And I'm writing. I can't tell you the number of times people approach me and say, "Are you taking a survey?" and I tell them, I say, "No, I'm an author. I'm writing. Please, go away. Leave me alone. I'm writing." My regimen is I can write almost anywhere, anytime, around the clock. When I was teaching over at the college, I would take my legal pad with me to my office. And if students did not come by during office hours, I was writing. If we had assemblies, I had my clipboard with me when I would be marching down the aisle with the other faculty, not even listening to the speaker, and I'm writing. I have been blessed that the good Lord has put words in my head, and I can take my pen and write. My pen chases my thoughts. I can write around the clock. I know most people can't do that, but I'm going with it while it's in me.
Yes, it seems natural for you, obviously, as you're describing that. Do you always use yellow? Because if somebody gives me a white legal pad, I don't feel it's the same. I feel like I'm letting the yellow one down here. That's like a sense of betrayal.
It is so funny that you're asking me those kinds of questions. all of my legal pads are the yellow, the canary color.
Yes. Okay. Good. Okay. That seems to work for me, and obviously works successfully for you. You talk about writing ideas down all the time. Do you ever face that when you got the pen, you've got the yellow pad in front of you, but the words aren't coming. The hand isn't moving. The pen is not working properly. What do you do when you hit those? Do you have those, and what do you do to get out of that writer's block?
I cannot think of a time that I have had writer's block.
Interesting.
Okay?
Interesting.
Seriously, I can write about anything, anytime, anywhere. I have paused when I'm trying to decide where to move a certain scene or plot or how to, build a certain character. But in terms of writer's block per se, I have not experienced that.
Let me ask it differently then. How difficult is it sometimes to shut off this creative flow that you have because it's time to go somewhere, it's time to teach a class, it's time to go to bed, and you've got all these ideas coming? Is that the problem for you, to sort of shut it down for a while?
It is a serious problem for me. It has affected my sleep. I have a serious problem with that, Rick, a very serious problem. So that's the downside.
Yes.
To what I do and the way that I write. It's difficult to shut down. Once in a while, though, when I realize that is all I have been doing, I look down and I'm in the same clothes that I had on yesterday. When it dawns on me, I will sometimes force myself to just plop everything down, pull myself together, maybe go to the store just to get out of the house, or even force myself to take a walk. In my neighborhood, we live on what we call a horseshoe-shaped street.
Oh, yes.
And I will just force myself to get out of the house and go do something totally unrelated to my writing. But here's the other downside to it. Even as I'm walking, I'm still thinking, but I continue I have to pull myself away. That's what I'm saying.
That's so interesting. So even if you're thinking all of a sudden it's tomorrow and you don't realize it, you've got 23 more pages of yellow pages filled up there. So it still has been a productive day. Our guest is M.J. Simms-Maddox. Her book is The Mysterious Affair at the Met. This is the latest in the Priscilla series, 5 with more to come. The books won a first place international book contest winner. The books are well received, excellent reviews. Information on her website, novelsbymj.com. Talk about the genres that you write and why, and maybe are you ready to explore other genres as well?
Again, when I think back to how I began, when I wrote my first book, I didn't even know it was a novel. So we're not in the genre identification stage yet. My editors told me, one, that I had written a novel, and in the first one they said it's a political thriller. And I heard and I understood what they were saying, but it didn't register. When I did the second one, it dealt with terrorism, okay? Priscilla's abducted. She's in Southern Africa in early post-apartheid Zimbabwe and apartheid-ruled South Africa. And there's all this, she's engaged in all this action because assassins are after her. Now that's not me. Okay, as they say, let me back up.
Okay.
that is not my real life. I made that up. Okay. But the people who read Mystery in Harare, the capital of Zimbabwe, they think the story is real. but it's not. I made it up. Now, it's historically grounded because in the mid 1980s, we were dealing with, apartheid was still
Oh, yes.
in Southern Africa, but also in the United Nations, America, well, not America, but some other countries had instituted something called South African divestiture, where they were trying to come up with a way to force South Africa to do away with, to dismantle its apartheid system. And Priscilla's former boss, when she worked in the Ohio Senate, had sponsored some legislation on South African divestiture. And so the assassins were people who were affiliated with the apartheid system, and they had come after her. And that's how she got abducted and was on the run in Southern Africa. That part again is not true, but the way it's written, people think it's true. And I did not, to get back to the main point, I did not realize it was a thriller.
Oh, yes.
Okay, again, my editors told me it was a thriller, and they said specifically it's an action-packed thriller. And I'm like, okay, but it wasn't until I got to, like, I think the third book, Three Metal Pellets, that I began to appreciate genre. But I never intended to write in any particular genre. It just so happened that the stories I wrote have all been mysteries and thrillers. Okay.
Yes.
And most of the thrillers, well, and there's almost always a political issue in each story. Now with the Met, there's no politics. Okay.
Yes.
The Met, there's no politics. There are no assassins. Okay. The Met is different in that it is white collar crime. Now it is still a mystery and detective-like, but it is void of all that action, heroine stuff, and thriller. It's not like that.
We will put all of your books in the enjoyment category. We'll let the experts put it into little subgenres and figure all that stuff out. They're very enjoyable reads, and The Mysterious Affair at the Met falls definitely into that category. What do you hope the readers take away from reading your novels?
Okay. I would hope that they find them inspirational. As you mentioned in the intro, the main character, Priscilla, is a young woman who happens to be a Black American. I would hope that young Black girls and girls of color can see themselves in a similar way. I did not realize when I started writing that there were very few novels depicting modern day Black girls or Black women. There are plenty on formerly enslaved. There are plenty on maids. There are plenty, on all that other stuff.
Yes.
But there are very few on modern day young women. And the modern day, Black women are everywhere. We're in the White House. We're in Google. We're at Wells Fargo. We're in TV. There are enough professional Black women that we can simply write a story where the main character happens to be a professional Black woman. Again, I did not set out to do that, but I learned over time the need for this type of story. Okay, so I hope that these young people will be inspired. Now, I'm not confining it to simply young girls of color. Anybody, okay?
Oh, yes.
It could be a boy. It could be. I want them to be able to. I want people to be able to see themselves in a positive light, especially people who are in desperate situations. So I want it to be inspirational. I want my books to be educational. I think because of my background in education as a professor, I have a teaching instinct about me. So all my books are historically accurate. Okay, I do my research so that the historical setting makes each scene real.
Yes.
So I want them to be educational. And incidentally, in the first one, Priscilla engaging the game of politics. I can't tell you the young people who've come to me and said, I read Priscilla, and guess what? I now understand how a bill becomes a law.
Yes.
Okay. I didn't set out to do that. It just happened because I had lived that life when I worked there. And I think Special Envoy, the fourth one, where Priscilla is a secret agent. She's couriering messages back and forth to the emirs in the United Arab Emirates. There's a whole story in there, through a whole theme, if you will, regarding the two-state solution, the issue between the Arab nations and Israel with regard to Palestine, if you will. The argument for a Palestinian state. I didn't realize how significant that material was until I just happened to write about it. You know, I gave both, all kinds of sides to the argument
Yes.
in that particular story. And here we are today. I want my work to be educational, okay? And the same thing I think I said in Three Metal Pillars, where she worked on the presidential campaign. People can actually, we're living it today,
yes,
more than ever before, but it's also in one of my books. So inspirational, educational, and of course, entertaining. I do not, however, think of something funny to put in each story, but somehow, as I'm writing, there's always room to put in a little humor, so it doesn't just break the pattern of maybe a lot of bad stuff happening, but even bad guys can make you laugh. So I put humor in it so that they can be, the stories can be entertaining.
Well, it's possible to use all three of those elements in your stories, which you do. It's not a textbook, but you'll learn something. Right. You'll be entertained as you're reading the story. But the time is going by so quickly. The specific book is The Mysterious Affair at the Met by M.J. Simms-Maddox. Book is available wherever books are sold. Her website is novelsbymj.com. A few minutes left here at the end. You went back. Let's go back to the beginning here. You were talking about the book, and you sent it off to a publisher, somebody to take a look at this. And people are writing books, and they don't know what to do after they've written the book. Do you need a literary agent? What's the beginning step for someone who has a story they want to tell?
You mentioned earlier the handbook that I published.
Yes.
There's a whole section in there on how to land a literary agent.
Yes.
A literary agent. Now, I went through that process, but I was unsuccessful in that I didn't realize that a lot of the major publishing houses were not interested in stories about modern day professional, self-assertive Black women. So I set out to publish my work myself. And in the handbook, I actually outlined step by step, how to do that. But I would encourage people first to try and get a literary agent, which might be a tad difficult these days because for whatever reason, a whole lot of people are writing books. A whole lot of people are writing books. So you may want to learn how to publish the book yourself. Again, in the handbook, I literally go step by step how to do that. And I provide the links and everything so that you don't have to, go looking for anything. But you can publish your work yourself. And lastly, indie publishing, that is those of us who are independent authors / publishers, that is all the rage. There are more independently published books today than ever before. It is one of the fastest growing sectors in the economy. And if you can publish your work yourself, go for it. That's how, by the way, Rick, the Met got picked up by Austin Macaulay. I had published the Met 2 years ago. Austin Macaulay publishers saw it and asked if they could publish it. So the book we're talking about today is the second edition of The Mysterious Affair at the Met, and it was released by Austin Macaulay in January of this year. So you sometimes have to just get your work out there and someone will eventually see it.
Well, in your handbook, it's a handbook for emerging and seasoned authors, an insider's step-by-step approach to becoming a successful indie book author and publisher. You go from establishing a budget. That's something that's very, very crucial. So you're not all of a sudden you've got a lot of book and not a lot of money left to publish it. The editor, all the steps you go through, the technical aspects, the manuscript, how to promote them, how to decide what format you want. There's so many different versions out there now. You've got, of course, ebooks are the big thing. All of that is in that book. And information on the website novelsbymj.com. A couple minutes left here. I want to go back and tie up The Mysterious Affair at the Met, because I love this book. I love what you've done. The vivid writing. I can see this unfold. I can see the people in their raincoats, and suddenly they're trapped basically in the Met when they realize something was going on there. How much fun was it in writing and telling the story for you?
It was loads of fun. It was loads of fun. I was so happy to not be talking about Priscilla on the run from assassins with automatic rifles, yes. All of that crazy stuff. It was much more fun to do what I call a story about mostly high society and white collar crime. It was invigorating.
Well, you've done an excellent job with that. What are you working on now? What's next for you?
Well, I have another novel that's, I'm waiting for the dust to settle with what's happening right now with the Met. But the 6th installment is the 2nd edition of the Special Envoy. Special Envoy has 3 stories. The first one is the one where she went to the United Arab Emirates as a special envoy. And this the one that's waiting for me to release it. She's a special envoy in former war-torn Yugoslavia. When the East European nations were transforming from communism to democracy. Yeah, and that's also timely. Okay.
It's very timely, and it's educational. I hate to throw that out there, educational. It sounds like, okay, this could be on the verge of boring. No, it's not. You'll learn something as you're reading it. You're thinking maybe this is all made up, and it's not. As the doctor was talking about, this is very, very well researched and thought out, and it's an enjoyable read as well. It's been a pleasure to have you on the program to talk about Priscilla, looking more from her. She's progressed. What have you learned from Priscilla in writing this character? She's learned a lot and grown a lot. How about you? Do you learn something when you write these books?
Well, I've learned basically how to just be myself. Okay.
Yes.
I'm basically a very aloof person, whether you can believe that or not. But in writing these stories, I'm sharing so much of what's inside me, of my personality, in ways that I never before would have done, because I was raised not to show myself to other people. Keep that personal, keep it to the family, okay? Keep it with your loved ones. But in writing these stories, a lot about me is simply bursting through the pages, okay? Because I can't write about Priscilla doing something unless I'm feeling it.
Yes.
Okay? So that much I can say. I've learned a lot about myself, but I'm also allowing myself, I'm freeing myself to be me when I write these stories.
Well, your parents would be proud. You really have discovered yourself and getting out there and doing so well and pleasing other people with what you love, which is writing. I can sense the passion for telling the story. And as long as you don't run out of yellow legal pads, I assume that we will see more coming from our guest on the program today, Dr. M.J. Simms-Maddox. Her website is very simple, novelsbymj.com. Book available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, the usual places. I'd like to thank KingPagesPress.com, the author's marketing consultant, for arranging our conversation today. And again, all this is on our website. Doctor, thank you for being with us on the program. More books to come, hopefully more conversations to come. It's been a pleasure having you with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and it's been a pleasure for me to be here.
Well, we're looking forward to more conversations. In the meantime, I encourage you to pick up a copy of The Mysterious Affair at the Met by M.J. Simms-Maddox and enjoy that, and go back and pick up the other books in the Priscilla series. And all this, by the way, on our website, thisweekinamerica.us. You're listening to This Week in America, and we continue with today's program right after these messages.
This Week in America is online. You can visit our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Scott Pinkerton, associate producer of This Week in America. Jay Anderson, segment producer. Ben Watson, webmaster. Otto Bechet, director of engineering and TV production. This Week in America produced and is a trademark of Blue Funk Broadcasting, LLC. For information on all of our guests and to listen to this week's show, our website again at thisweekinamerica.us. And I'm Sean Bratton, executive producer of This Week in America.